Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome here. We are here today with it's Valeria Robecco, and I'm the UNCA president. We're very grateful to have here today Human Rights Watch and B'Tselem to hear from the Israeli human rights organization about their work in Gaza and the last developments on the ground. So I don't want to take any more of your time, and I leave the floor to Lou Charbonneau, UN Director of Human Rights Watch. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Valeria, and it's great to see everyone. Yes, I'm Lou Charbonneau, Human Rights Watch, UN Director. Great to see everyone here, and I know it's a busy time, but let me introduce our guests who are from fantastic organization B'Tselem. And we have here Yuli Novak, who is the executive director of B'Tselem, and Kareem Jubran, who's the field research director. And they are here to talk about their report that was published in July called Our Genocide. And they've just come back from Washington, D.C. They're doing a kind of U.S. tour, D.C. and New York. So without further ado, over to you both.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. Thank you for coming. I'll say a few words about B'Tselem, and then we'll dive into the current situation we're in and the report we published. So B'Tselem is one of the oldest Israeli human rights organizations. We work for over 35 years to document, investigate, and publish information about violation of human rights of Palestinians under Israeli occupation and apartheid. We are Israeli organization, but our staff is combined of Israelis and Palestinians who work together. The Israeli Jews, Palestinians from within 48, from within Israel, from Jerusalem, like Kareem, you're with me, from the West Bank and from the Gaza Strip. So in that sense, we're quite unique creature in the place we're coming from, which is very much entrenched in polarization and separation between Jews and Palestinians. We're coming here in a very critical moment and dangerous moment in our view, because we're a system, a governing system, that is in control over territory between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. The Israeli system, a system that committed genocide, is now enjoying full impunity by Western countries, by international community, and after this week also from bodies of the UN Security Council. We can talk about that later. We are now almost 6 weeks into the so-called ceasefire, and we can tell you that we can say a lot of things about this ceasefire. The fire didn't stop, not even for a minute. So even if the bombardment reduced, we're still witnessing an ongoing assault over Palestinians, both in Gaza and in the West Bank. We're sitting here today knowing that at least 32 Palestinians got killed by Israel yesterday in the Gaza Strip. 12 from them, 12 are children, 8 women. And again, the numbers probably higher, but that's the official numbers that we know, that the bodies that arrived to hospitals in the Strip. Since October 10th, the announcement of the deal, we're talking about more than 300 people who got killed in Gaza by Israel. We're talking about more than 1,500 buildings that were destroyed, and the medical aid, the humanitarian aid that was supposed to get in according to the agreement, which was 600 trucks a day, which is merely enough or sufficient to the needs, the humanitarian needs in the Gaza Strip. Anyway, this humanitarian aid does not enter the Strip. At least 75% of those trucks are denied access by Israel. So that's the situation on the ground in Gaza. At the same time, in the West Bank, violence is just keep rising. That's one thing that concerned us about this so-called ceasefire. The other thing is the conditions that enable us to get to where we are, that enabled Israel to commit the most extreme form of violence that can be conducted against people, a genocide, are still in place and probably got even worse than where we were 2 years ago. And in that sense, with lack of impunity, complete impunity, complete lack of accountability, and a condition that are just worsening, we come here to the US to say that we fear that the worst, we haven't seen the worst, that the worst of this sort of violence that the Israeli system can inflict on Palestinians and on human beings is yet to be seen, if nothing will change. We're here to talk about genocide, and as was told, this July we published a report. We called the report Our Genocide because that's what it is, a genocide that was conducted and still is by the people of that land, over the people of that land. And since we are coming from there, we are both, Kareem and I, are Palestinian and Israeli who live there. We thought that's the right way to title this report. This report is personal because this violence is personal. It affects our lives, the place we live in, and the future that we hope for. When we're talking about genocide, we're talking about an coordinated and intended attack over civilian with the clear intention to destroy a group as such. In that sense, when we're talking about genocide, and that's what makes this phenomenon of political violence so extreme and so unique, the targets are the people, but the aim of the attack is the group and to destroy a group. It doesn't mean that this attack needs to kill each and every person within the group, right? What it means that the ultimate goal of it is to make the group disappear as such. That's what Israeli leaders declared at the beginning of the attack over Gaza back in October 23. They said that their intention and the attack is intended for towards civilians. Our leaders, political leaders, including the Prime Minister, the Minister of Defense, the President of Israel, all stood up and said there are no innocent people in Gaza. We are fighting human animals. It's quotes. Benjamin Netanyahu, when he sent the soldiers, the Israeli army, into Gaza, he told them, you are going to fight Amalek. Now, Amalek for Israel is a dog whistle. We all learned it in school, this biblical term that means go and kill everybody. Don't leave anyone behind, not women, no children. That was the declarations. And then they went on and did exactly what they promised. In our report, which you can read, we actually try to do two things. The first is to portray this specific genocide, because every genocide throughout history used different tactics, different methods in order to achieve its goal. When we're looking at what took place during the past 2 years and still is in Gaza, we're seeing actually the combination of 4 main tactics. One is the mass killing and physical and mental harm that has been inflicted on people. We're talking about more than 67,000 people dead that got killed. Third of them are women and children, probably much more that are still buried under the rebels of Gaza. So that's the first element. The second element is the mass deportation of people, the forced removal of millions of people. Almost all of Gaza population were forcibly displaced more than once, many times more than once within the enclave. The third component is the mass destruction, and that we all saw the aerial footage of entire cities. We actually talk about most of the Gaza Strip at the moment is in complete ruin. We're talking about more than 80% of the buildings in Gaza that have been destroyed. And the fourth element is the destruction of society as such, destruction of the institution of the family, of the community, the full destruction of the education system, right? And in that element is not only about now, it's also about destroying the future generation and the ability of this community to recover. So what Israel did is basically to make sure to destroy everything that is needed for humans and for society to live. And they succeeded in that. Above all these tactics, we can identify, and it's important to identify this thick layer of incitement and dehumanization that enable the Israeli public to fully support this attack, either by taking part of it. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of soldiers who got recruited to reserve duty, volunteered to reserve duty in order to take part in the attack over Gaza. We're talking about the total legitimization and normalization of genocide and genocidal discourse within Israel public discourse and within Israeli media, or for other just standing by and turning a blind eye to what they see on the ground. So that's the first part of our report. The second part of our report is trying to explain how we got there. And here it is very important for us to stress a genocide is not an event, it's a process. No genocide throughout history started in one day out of thin air. And in that sense, October 7th attack over Israel was crucial in our understanding in pushing this system from a state of being a system, a governing system of oppression, apartheid, ethnic cleansing, into a genocidal system. But it couldn't happen without prior conditions that were set throughout almost 80 years now of Israeli control over the land, over the Palestinians, holding an oppressive regime of separation, of hyper-militarization, of constant incitement and dehumanization of Palestinians, specifically and especially the Palestinians of Gaza, and above all, impunity, ongoing impunity that Israelis and the Israeli system enjoyed throughout the decades for hurting Palestinians. We are focusing in our report on the condition and what happened in Gaza, but at the same time we're also saying and stressing that the situation is worrying not only in Gaza because we're talking about the same regime, the same system that is in place, that is in control in Gaza, in the West Bank and inside Israel. The same army that conducted those crimes in Gaza is deployed in the West Bank, the same soldiers, the same commanders, the same mindset, and even if the level of violence that we're witnessing today in the West Bank is lower, the logic is the same, and we stress a very strong warning that genocide can spill over into other areas, as long as there is no mechanism, and today there is no mechanism either locally or internationally that will stop it and demand Israel to be held accountable for committing genocide. Kareem?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending, to having us. I worked for B'Tselem more than 21 years. I started my work at 2004. As a field researcher in Jerusalem. Later on, I became the head of the field research in B'Tselem. Along the year, we document and we received hundreds, if not thousands, of documentations of human rights violations, of crimes. At 2008, we thought that we have seen the most terrible year in our lives when Israel attacked Gaza and killed more than 1,400 Palestinians inside Gaza. But later on, 2014, again, Gaza being attacked and more than 2,400 Palestinians being killed, including whole families, which they wiped out completely. Later on, 2019, the March return demonstrations, Israeli sniper killed more than 230 Palestinians while they protesting next to the borders. The international community didn't do anything in order to stop this violence from Israel. They don't have any accountability against these crimes against the civilians inside Palestine and against the occupation and the apartheid regime, which is continuing for decades in our country. That's what allowing Israel to start its genocide in Gaza after the 7th of October. If we're talking about the disaster situation inside Gaza and the life of the people under the genocide in Gaza, it's completely disasters. The numbers of the fatalities, which is more than 67,000, and we have much more people still under the rubble of the buildings. And only one example, our field researcher, her brother, his wife, his daughter, or their daughter, they're being killed in the beginning of the war, and still until this moment their bodies under the rubble of Jabalia refugee camp. The mass destruction of the infrastructure inside Gaza, the destruction of the houses, the universities, the clinics, the schools, it means that the Israeli side wants to erase Gaza completely and to not able Gaza to be a place for life in the future. They had the main goal to displace and to ethnic cleansing Gaza completely, and by creating unlivable conditions inside Gaza. When we talk with our friends in Gaza, I have a friend, Muhammad Saeed, he told me more than one time that I wish that I was being killed with my family in the beginning of the war. I'm not passing all tragical situation, starvation, fears. Imagine kids of Gaza living for 2 years under the aircraft attacks, 24 hours, day after day. After they hear every bomb or every attack, they thought that they will be the next victims of this crazy situation. As Yuli told, even after the ceasefire, the situation continued to be the same in Gaza. Maybe the number of the fatalities is less, but still the death is dancing there. Still the starvation, still the lack of the elementary needs. Just a few days ago, when the rain fell in Gaza, the people found themselves in swimming pools in their tents. And imagine the most needed thing now to be entered to Gaza, the tents. Israel, until this moment, bringing tents into Gaza. That means that they keep the suffering of the civilians. They want to punish more and more and more the civilians, not only by killing, but only by creating unlivable situation inside Gaza. If we look to the other side, to the West Bank, in the West Bank, the same. Since the 7th of October, more than 1,000 Palestinians being killed inside the West Bank. Israel start to adopt Gaza model and to bring Gaza model to the West Bank by using aircrafts attacking the refugee camps in the north of the West Bank, Jenin and Tulkarem refugee camps. They displaced from these camps around 40,000 Palestinians. And after almost 1 year, they are still outside their houses. They are not being allowed to return back to their houses. Another very dangerous phenomenon, the weapon of fascist Israeli civilians with hundreds, thousands of machine guns, M16. These groups and these militias terrorized and attacking the Palestinians in daily basis. Every day we receive a number of attacks against the civilians in the West Bank. The main goal of these attacks is to ethnic cleansing more than 60% of the total amount of the West Bank. These attacks are backed by the army, by the state, by politicians. Even the killing of Palestinians by settlers, and we document more than 20 cases of Palestinians being killed by the fire of the settlers without any accountability, without any price paying for that. If we move inside the West Bank now, there is more than 1,000 checkpoints and road blocks and gates and checkpoints. And if you are a Palestinian and you want to go to your work or to your university, you have to spend hours in your way. And the only and the main general thing that the Palestinians do every day in the morning to look to their smartphones about the situation of the roads. In some roads it's closed, some roads there are the settlers there and attacking the cars. You have to take in your account all these things before you leave your house if you are a Palestinian. The harvest season this year, it was completely disaster for the farmers. More than 90% of the farmers, they didn't reach their lands. And those, the lucky ones, which they get coordination in order to reach their land, they've been attacked in the presence of the army in their fields, and they've been pushed out of their, kicked out of their lands. Most of the olive fields, when they reached their fields, they found that the settlers cut their trees and they damaged all the fields. The forest displacement, until this moment, we're talking about 45 communities which they're being displaced and pushed out of their lands by the settler violence and by the daily attacks carried out by the settlers against the Palestinians. That's the situation in the West Bank, and that's why we warn that the genocide can be transferred to the West Bank with any small trigger, or any trigger will be enough to open the gates of the hell also inside the West Bank. Thank you.
We just one tiny correction. Kareem said that we're talking about the arming of settlers and Israeli civilians by the state, which is a huge project that takes place now under the leadership of Itamar Ben-Gvir, our national security. But he said machine guns, and what they're disappearing is our guns, right? So not a machine gun yet. We haven't got there, but more than, we know for sure that more than 200,000 guns have been spread around to both settlers and Israeli and Israelis within Israel, civilians, in order to, within this kind of built militias of civil protection, or however they call it, but they are now on the streets and they are using them.
Thanks, Yuli and Kareem.